My name is Joe Wetzel, board member at the McLean Project for the Arts, and I'm here with Saya Behnam, who is participating in the McLean Project for the Arts Art Fest, our annual get-together in the park. Saya has worked with us at the MPAartfest before, so she's no stranger to either McLean Project for the Arts or the venue. What is a little different might be this video recording as a part of it all, but it's an opportunity to briefly get to meet Saya and have her tell us a little bit about her and her art. I'm thrilled because it's not too often that I get to do an interview with an artist who doesn't use paint. And simply by that, this is a lead-in. You make your own paints, is what I mean to say. There's nothing when somebody looks at your artwork and they're looking at magnificent colors or deep, rich umbers or whatever. That's from stuff you found in the woods, basically, and that's an important part of both your finished art and the whole process. Have I taken all the words out of your mouth? You want to give us a little bit of background on that? Because that's a hard journey. I mean, it would be so much easier to buy a tube of paint than the process you go to. It must mean something to you.
Yes, Joe, that's a great question. And in fact, it's the core of my work, because sometimes people tell me, why you make your own inks? There's all synthetic inks around and it's much easier to squeeze a tube and have your color. But for me, it's really part of my art. The journey and making the inks and colors from nature, my surrounding, have a history in how I record this in my painting. I use dry flower, fresh flowers, bark, spices, a lot of botanical resources together with the stone and minerals, because some range of the shades, especially blue and turquoise and some sort of green, you cannot find it in botanical resources. There are indigo and wood, some of them or logwood, but not as the variety like how you can find in cobalt or lapis lazuli or some of the minerals that you can find, which those I try to find the good resources and get them. The process started when I used to work with synthetic colors. I'm a painter for over 20 years, but 10 years ago, I was drinking hibiscus tea. And first of all, I'm Iranian American. I have a background. In our background, we use saffron. It drinks hibiscus tea, very kind of herbal and natural thing using in the food, and also like a drinking it. And by accident, I split it on my paper. And I kept watching that, how this beautiful color starting to just appear. So I took it to my studio and start learning and kind of researching about it, and realized before 17th century, most artists use nature as their source of making their colors. And I started to practicing it, one plant, at a time, like spices like a saffron, turmeric, or go outside, look at all the weeds or flowers that are around me and try to find what are the documents or process available from those years that I can apply it. And plus, some of them from my own trial and error. When you learn the base, I could do it the way that I think that can apply to this color. Maybe this one has a anti-sound. By the way, I had to improve my knowledge about many things: chemistry, botany, and so many different things. But
it would be so easy. It would be so easy to start mixing things and end up with nothing but a mud color. I mean,
yes.
The discipline that you exhibit just in getting the colors is phenomenal.
Yes.
Mind-blowing. Sorry for anyone who is just buying tubes of paint. The work that the colors that Saya comes up with are amazing. And I know you're very generous with your time in teaching others some of this process, at least how to get going, and that's got to be exciting for you as well.
Yes. Yes, because some of these things, especially how to use them, there's a lot of knowledge about dyeing fabrics in natural colors, but I don't see a lot of artists using as a paint as ink for painting, because there are so many things involved that stops painters using it, from making it, preserving them, the substrate you use it. So I really want to pass information out to have these medium as something that very, very interesting. And the range of the shade and colors, honestly, is they have the better hue, brilliant, and I think has energy. And another important point for me is, since my ink and colors are from a specific location and time, I won't be able to duplicate it. Like, imagine, and the shades are not the same. So I have to go with unknown. I have to go with some sort of going with the flow of what I get. That's what I call it, co-creation with nature. And it's like how wine tastes different in different soils. The shades are different from one plant in different season, in different location, and different time. So the paintings are a very unique record of the time and location that I lived in, and I experienced that. So that I believe that's nothing you can do it with synthetic colors.
No, and I think that's an important point for people to understand, is that your process of creating your own colors is not a segregated discipline, but rather it's an incorporated piece, as you just explained, an incorporated element of the final work. So you're able to feel a work all the way from the beginning, before the beginning, if you will, picking up the leaf and gathering the lapis or whatever. I mean, your connection to your final work is, I think, far greater than many artists who are just using that tube of paint, for instance.
Yeah.
And your work also is not just painting. I mean, you're pretty broad in your reach. You're not just using leaves. You're not just using saffron. I've seen a number of your works that also incorporate man-made objects as well. I mean, if you're trying to demonstrate something that involves time or the passage of time, you are not against using a piece of a clock, if that's the reference. But I have to compliment you that it's not a hit the viewer over the head with that piece of clock. Your use of the man-made object draws somebody in and starts a thinking process, a dialogue with not just that element, but really the whole rest of the work. It's really impressive, and it must take as long as making paint to come up with these three-dimensional objects.
Yes, I use those objects especially in my wall sculptures. And for those wall sculptures, because the ephemerality and how nature is the transient nature, the process in nature, I kind of want to use them as a metaphor, as a hint that how relate the concept of everything is so temporary, and the concept of time is related, how I relate the concept of time to the process of my ink making. So yes, you see those on my in my wall sculptures that I use some parts of the clocks.
Speaking of time, Saya, let me back up in time. You began your life, your real life, in Iran, and times were troubled. What in a quick nutshell, times were troubled. How much of the conflict that you saw around you during your early years in Tehran do you think still carries with you or influences what you're doing now? I mean, looking at your work now, it's thoughtful and yet peaceful. I'm not seeing conflict, but I'm probably not. It's probably the result of some of that early conflict that I'm seeing.
Yes, I was born and grown up in Tehran, and the time was the war between Iran and Iraq. Even though it was kind of like in my teenager years, and when I had to apply to, and then the time that you just they couldn't leave the country because of the war. Everything was closed. And I had to study. And for studying, just, you know, there are a lot of restrictions from the government, especially for women. That
Right.
So even though I liked art, I had to study botany in biology in university. And that time I was cursing myself. Oh, I don't like this. I have to study that. So what is this? So also seeing all the things around me, especially not being free to express what you want to do, and all this nasty pressure of the war and dictatorship. Definitely, you really feel it. You feel that how it means that someone tells you that you cannot do or act what you want, and pressure. So when I immigrated to United States and study, because I had to work, and just immigrant life is really, people who went to that process, is really hard, because you have to first make yourself stable. You still cannot go over your dreams. First, you have to make sure you can live. Survive. So I had to work, and on the side I started to study at the Corcoran School of Art for the not the full curriculum, but so I had my art and on the side and start doing graphic design. But in my art, I always think that the word you write has a lot of nasty side. But in my art, which always have been a sanctuary for me, my imagination, even though when I was there, always is the place that I can feel comfort and joy of life, not the bad side of it, which is war and killing and dictatorship and pressure. So is opening a window and you can breathe, or you can see the beauty of it. So for all the time I did my work, I want to show that side. Maybe it's like an opposite of what I felt. I want to say, okay, like a drug. You see, okay, right. I know this is a pressure, but I want to find something. I want to show something that I feel good about it, or make people see, okay, there are beauty in the world. And nature is something that I guess that was very available or close to all of us. So well, yes, yeah. I want to show joy and beauty.
Explained that way, it certainly makes perfect sense. And speaking of time, we've run out. Time is like that. Time is like that. As you said, it's ephemeral, it's fast moving, and we have run out of this one. So I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today, and thank you too for participating in the McLean Project for the Arts Art Fest coming up just 2 months from now. I know you've been with us before. Thank you for coming back with us again. And that said, we look forward to seeing you in October.
Thank you so much, Joe. Great interview. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.